I arrived at McDonald's later than usual. The streets outside were empty, the city lights distant and blurred, and the air carried the faint metallic smell of winter that made my nose twitch. Even from the parking lot, I could see the glow of the golden arches, steady but too bright for this late hour, cutting through the darkness like a blade. As I walked across the asphalt, the crunch of my shoes on scattered gravel sounded louder than it should. I paused for a moment, noticing how cold the air had grown, how every exhale left a thin, ghostly trail before it vanished. The wind carried a faint mix of exhaust and something sweeter, almost like the scent of fries lingering from hours earlier, a smell that clung to the curb and seeped into the edges of my shoes. The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh, releasing warmth and the familiar scent of salt, sugar, and cleaning chemicals. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed, low and steady, and the tiles reflected them unevenly, as if tired of holding the light. I could hear the distant clink of a soda cup being set on a counter, the faint shuffle of a broom somewhere near the back. But nothing was near me. I moved toward the restroom. The hallway seemed longer than I remembered. The tiles under my shoes were cold, sticky in patches where the mop hadn't dried properly. The air smelled of something faintly metallic, mixed with the harsh chemical cleaner, and it made the back of my throat itch. I noticed the flicker of the overhead lights. Each time one buzzed softly or dimmed, a wave of unease passed through me, subtle and lingering, like a shadow brushing the edge of my vision. The door to the restroom was slightly ajar. I didn't remember leaving it open. My hand hovered for a moment over the edge, just above the cold metal handle. The hallway stretched behind me, empty, silent. I could hear the faint hum of the air conditioning, almost imperceptible, but somehow it filled the space, vibrating against my ears. I swallowed and told myself it was nothing, that someone had left it open by accident. Inside, everything seemed normal. The beige tiles were clean, lined up in uniform rows. The sinks gleamed under the fluorescent light, each faucet reflecting a small, distorted image of the room. I moved slowly, deliberately, my fingers brushing the cold edge of the porcelain sink as I washed my hands. The water hissed softly, and I could hear it dripping into the drain, a tiny echo that seemed impossibly loud in the stillness. And then I noticed it, the faint creak of a stall door. Just one. Not loud enough to be certain, but enough to make my stomach tighten. I froze, listening. The sound didn't repeat, didn't continue. It hung in the air for a long moment, like a question I didn't want to answer. My mind raced through possibilities. An air current, a hinge, a maintenance worker, but none of them felt right. I took a slow step toward the stalls, careful not to make a sound. The tiles were slightly damp under my shoes, sticky, and the air smelled sharper here, like something had lingered too long. The lights flickered again, and I caught the corner of my reflection in the mirror, slightly distorted, like the glass itself was tired of being looked at. My own eyes seemed unfamiliar, tired in a way I didn't feel before I entered. I stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of the silence. The hum of the lights, the faint buzz from the parking lot outside, the soft creak of the tiles beneath my shoes. It all felt intentional, deliberate, as if the building itself were watching me, waiting. My fingers itched to leave, to push the door and step back into the fluorescent hallway, but some part of me, quiet and stubborn, wanted to see if I was wrong. And then it struck me, slow and certain, I am not the only one here. Not anymore. Trash can was not overflowing, the paper towels folded neatly, the sinks untouched. Yet there was a sound, a soft, deliberate dragging. At first, I thought it was the water from a leaky faucet, or perhaps a cleaning cart being pushed somewhere beyond my line of sight. But no one came into view. I froze and listened. The sound repeated, soft, uneven, like something being pulled slowly across the floor. Not enough to identify, not loud enough to be certain, but there it was. My chest tightened. I told myself it was nothing, that the floorboards sometimes creak in strange patterns at night, that the building settles, the air shifts. I tried to move on, to tell myself I had imagined it. But as I turned toward the sink to dry my hands, the reflection in the mirror caught my attention. There was something, or rather someone, standing at the far end of the row of stalls. I blinked. The figure didn't move, didn't step forward. It was just there, still and silent. I forced my eyes back to the reflection of the room itself. Empty. Nothing. My stomach churned. I looked down at my hands, at the pale skin reflected in the polished faucet. My breath came in shallow, hesitant bursts. The air smelled sharper now, like metal and disinfectant mixed in a way that made my throat dry. Shaking my head, I told myself it was a trick of the light, a shadow cast by the flickering fluorescent bulbs. It had to be. I stepped closer to the stalls, careful, each movement deliberate. My shoes squeaked against the damp tiles. The faint dragging sound repeated, but I still couldn't see its source. I reached for a stall door to check. My fingers brushed the cold metal. The door was empty. No one. The sound had stopped. For a moment, I exhaled slowly, trying to convince myself it was over. But then, a whisper, so soft I wasn't sure I had heard it, brushed against the edges of my ear. Not words, not language, just the faintest hint of something. A breath, a sigh, a pause. I spun slightly. Nothing. Silence. Only the hum of the lights, the faint echo of my own heartbeat in my chest, and the scent, sharp, sterile, metallic, clinging to the air. I stepped back, toward the sink, telling myself again it was nothing, just my mind playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew it wasn't nothing. Something had shifted in the room, though I could see nothing. Something had noticed me. And though I didn't see it, though I told myself I was safe, I could feel it. The space around me had changed, subtle and deliberate, like a shadow pressing closer without moving. I stayed for a few more seconds, just breathing, listening, feeling the tiles beneath my shoes. Then I left the restroom slowly, deliberately, careful not to run, careful not to make a sound that would betray my unease. The hallway outside was still, the doors glowing in the pale light. Everything seemed normal again. And yet, the sound of that dragging, soft and deliberate, lingered in my mind, echoing with each step I took toward the exit. I told myself I had imagined it. I had to. But something had already noticed me. The next night, I returned. I told myself I needed to see for myself, to check that I wasn't losing my mind. The fluorescent lights buzzed above as I stepped into the McDonald's, the late-hour quiet pressing against me like a cold wall. The smell of fried food lingered, warm and faint, but it didn't comfort me. The air felt heavier tonight, thicker somehow, as if it was watching me, waiting. I made my way to the bathroom. Each step echoed against the tile, sharp and deliberate. The dragging sound was there again, soft, uneven, deliberate, just as it had been the night before. My stomach twisted. I stopped and listened, holding my breath. The sound moved slowly, side to side, shifting in rhythm with something I couldn't see. I approached the stalls cautiously. This time, I noticed patterns. The sound came in intervals, a slow, steady cadence, like a pulse. My heart seemed to sync with it, unwillingly, each beat echoing the dragging, the shifting, the deliberate press of unseen weight across the floor. I looked in the mirror. The reflection was empty. But in the corner of my eye, I caught movement, fleeting, just a flicker at the edge of the frame. I spun, head turning, trying to catch it in the stall rows. Nothing. Still, the sound persisted. I realized it wasn't random. It was waiting. It had purpose. I pressed my hand against the cold sink, trying to anchor myself, and thought, maybe it's the cleaners again, working in the shadows, the night staff. Maybe I'm imagining patterns. Maybe the night just repeats itself in ways I don't notice during the day. Rationalizations ran through my mind, thin and fragile. Each one felt weaker than the last. Then I noticed the taps dripping in uneven bursts, a rhythm that matched the dragging now, almost perfectly. My throat went dry. I wanted to speak, to call someone, but the words caught in my chest. The sound had weight, and even though I could see nothing, I could feel it moving around me, circling, precise. I took a step back. The dragging stopped. Silence. My breath came shallow and rapid. I waited, counting slowly in my mind, feeling the seconds stretch, listening to the hum of the lights and the faint buzz of the ventilation. Then it started again, the dragging, the subtle shifting, the sound of something moving just beyond reach. And that's when I realized, every night at this hour it was the same. The pattern repeated. I could rely on it happening. But I still didn't understand it, didn't touch it, didn't confront it. I just watched and waited and felt my own heartbeat align with the rhythm of something I couldn't see. By the time I left, the sound faded, leaving only the lingering pressure in the air, the knowledge that the pattern would return, and the certainty that I was part of it now, whether I wanted to be or not. I told myself again, I was imagining it. I had to. But the pattern was real. And I had already noticed. I couldn't sleep that night. Lying in my bed, the sound haunted me, not in the literal sense, but in the corners of my mind. My sheets felt too warm, too heavy, as if the weight of the night had settled onto me. Every creak of the apartment, the fridge humming, pipes settling, made my heart jump. I told myself it was normal. Buildings make noise. I had always known that. But it wasn't the building, was it? I kept replaying the dragging sound over and over. My thoughts circled, each possibility weaker than the last. Maybe the sound was someone else. But who would be here at this hour? Why so precise, so rhythmic? Why did it always seem to move just out of sight, always matching the smallest patterns of the room? I tried to distract myself. I went over the day, tried to think of meals I'd eaten, work, errands, the mundane. But even in those recollections, the sound lingered. It had left an imprint. My mind wandered to the first night, to the exact way the stalls were lined, the way the taps drip. My stomach tightened. I felt it deep in my chest, the certainty that I had noticed something I could never unsee. I thought about going back, about confronting it, about stepping into the bathroom again, even for a moment to see. Part of me wanted to rationalize it. Just the night staff, just cleaning sounds, just my imagination. But the part that had felt it in the air, that had felt its rhythm line up with my heartbeat, that part refused to be convinced. I tried to calm myself. I ran my hands over my face, listened to the hum of my apartment. Everything seemed ordinary. The window was still. The street below quiet. And yet, the memory of that dragging, the memory of the empty stalls, the mirrors reflecting only me and nothing else, it pressed against me. My thoughts kept returning, unwilling to let go. I realized I had changed without noticing. I flinched at the smallest sound. I paused when the phone rang, my mind instantly imagining something behind me, just beyond vision. I noticed patterns everywhere now, in the way shadows shifted, in the small differences in light, in the sounds I used to ignore. And still, I couldn't name it. I couldn't explain it. I couldn't make sense of it. All I could do was feel it, feel the rhythm of it, feel the pull of something I had brought into my awareness and could never undo. I thought, maybe if I ignore it, it will go away. But deep down, I knew that noticing it had already tied me to it. The realization settled heavy in my chest. Once seen, once counted, once heard, it never leaves. I lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling, tracing shadows cast by the streetlights. Every quiet shift of air, every settling creak, every distant car seemed to echo that rhythm. I tried to tell myself it was safe. I tried to tell myself it was just sound. But it wasn't just sound anymore. And I understood, fully, that I had crossed a threshold the moment I heard it. I had noticed. And some things, once noticed, never release you. By the next evening, I found myself standing in front of the bathroom again. The street was quiet, almost empty, the neon of the McDonald's flickering gently across the asphalt. My hands trembled slightly, though I told myself it was nothing. Just nerves. Just anticipation. I pressed the door handle and felt it cool and solid beneath my fingers. The scent of cleaning solution lingered faintly, mingled with the faint, metallic smell that seemed to linger at the edges of the room, only noticeable when I was close. I paused. I could walk away. I could go home and pretend none of it had happened. I could tell myself it was all imagination. But I didn't. I stepped inside. The light was the same as before, harsh and fluorescent, washing every surface in sterile clarity. The sound was there too, faint, almost imperceptible, dragging across the tiles. It wasn't anything I could name. It didn't have a source I could locate. And yet it moved through the air, brushing past me, settling into the corners of my mind. I froze. My breath became shallow. I knew, as I had known before, that once I moved forward, once I let myself be present in this place at this hour, there was no turning back. And yet, I did it. I walked deeper into the room, past the stalls. I ran my fingers along the edge of a countertop, felt the chill of the tile under my hand. I could feel the small vibrations in the floorboards, the imperceptible settling of the building around me. I told myself I was just checking. Just checking for what, exactly? I didn't know. There was no reason, no logic, only the compulsion to move, to see, to engage with it, quietly, without drama. I lingered near the last stall, listening to the faint, dragging rhythm, letting my mind measure it, trace it. And I made a choice, a quiet, simple decision. I opened the stall door. Not to confront, not to discover, not even to look. Just to step inside, just to touch the threshold. The sound shifted slightly. It was subtle, almost courteous in its adjustment, as if it had been waiting for me to act. I paused, half expecting a voice, a figure, a confirmation that I had done something irreversible. But nothing came. Only the familiar emptiness, only the air thick with the memory of the previous nights. I left the bathroom then, my steps slow, deliberate, trying to convince myself that I had done nothing, that it was still ordinary. But the truth had settled in, a quiet weight in my chest. The decision, though small and seemingly inconsequential, had tethered me to the sound, to the space, to something I could not undo. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The awareness was already inside me. The threshold had been crossed. And I knew, even as I stepped out into the neon-lit street, that the night, the sound, the space itself had claimed a part of me. Quietly, permanently. I returned home that night in silence. The city felt unchanged, yet somehow heavier. The neon signs flickered as usual, the cars hummed down the streets, and yet the world outside seemed separate, distant, as though it belonged to someone else entirely. I sat in the kitchen, the faint smell of leftover fries lingering from earlier in the evening. I could taste the salt and grease on my tongue, even though I hadn't eaten. The memory of the bathroom followed me, curling around the edges of my thoughts. That same dragging sound, faint but insistent, pressing against the corners of my mind. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself it would fade. I told myself I could ignore it. But I couldn't. The next morning, the sound was there again, quieter now, almost polite, like it was testing me. I moved through my apartment with the slow rhythm of someone half asleep, brushing my fingers along the furniture, noticing the slight vibration under the floorboards, the faint metallic tang in the air. The city was alive, yet it felt hollow, as if it existed only to remind me of that one threshold I had crossed. Days passed. I went about my routines, the work, the errands, the brief moments of normalcy. Yet every step carried that quiet weight. The threshold had not closed behind me. It was lodged somewhere inside, a persistent pulse beneath the surface of ordinary life. I tried to speak about it, to anyone, but the words stuck, lifeless and useless, dissolving into silence before they could form. There was no one to tell. No one who could understand. Only the faint memory of a bathroom, a neon glow, and the choice I had made. Even now, as I write these words in the dim light of my apartment, I feel it brushing against me. Not loudly, not violently. Just there. A patient presence, marking me, reminding me that some doors, once opened, never close. And when I finally lay down to sleep, I hear it again, quiet, steady, unrelenting. I do not move. I do not call out. I simply lie there, knowing that it will always be with me. I will never be alone.